funny cause the rappers are posing as the gangsters while the government taking money as bonuses for bankers. In life you learn to close your eyes and hold your tongue, but together we will overcome. There's never been a chosen one.
Okay, so I wanted to make another video about the Freedom Convoy, just it being 2 years out now. There were certain things I didn't mention in the last video. I mean, the primary purpose for me going and attending the convoy in Ottawa was as a representative of Conceal Network. I wanted to go and promote privacy coins among the Freedom Convoy, pretty much advocating for them to take donations in privacy coins as opposed to Bitcoin or Ethereum or cash and e-transfers. And I mean, cash is fine, but essentially they had all their funds frozen, and there's a discussion in the country about freezing their funds. Like they proposed the idea before it actually happened, and really I went there to warn the Freedom Convoy that if they didn't accept private donations through private by default cryptos, they were going to end up in the situation that they found themselves in. So it was actually quite unfortunate that there wasn't the awareness within the Freedom Convoy that they could have financed themselves privately in a way that the government couldn't have stopped. For me, it was such a loss because we had the tools that we needed, and it's just we didn't have the awareness to actually use them. And I mean, I have some footage of myself from the Freedom Convoy. I'll post that here. So I went there with one of my good friends. We printed out a bunch of flyers about privacy coins, about Conceal Network. I had a pirate chain flag that I was parading around with myself. Some footage of that I have as well. I'll put that in. I tried to prevent what happened to the Freedom Convoy from happening. But I did that from a position where I didn't really have much of a voice or any influence on the Freedom Convoy, really. Like, we went there and we spoke to a whole bunch of people, but I only had a few days there. I had to get back to my wife and kids. I was very fortunate that my friend had the time to come and spend a few days with me. So yeah, he helped me out. We went and talked to a whole bunch of people, talked about crypto with a lot of people from the Freedom Convoy. But they were mostly uninterested in anything new because a lot of it was stuff they weren't familiar with. A lot of the truckers there were just kind of being shown how to set up a Bitcoin wallet, and then people were sending them donations. So it was stuff that was really new to these guys. And it's one of these points of contention that I have with what happened in Canada, where it really didn't have to be that way. We could have actually shown them a thing or two. But there wasn't the wherewithal or the will to do that, so it was kind of disappointing the way things went. I think globally it was a disappointment for the world when they saw the Canadian government take down the Freedom Convoy. And it was a really disheartening time. Like I said, it was a really good experience to go to Ottawa and talk to the truckers, talk to everyone else who'd been affected, similarly to the way I and my friend had been. And it was just really nice. It really was. You ask anyone who went there in person, they'll say it was a healing experience, especially if that person was someone who was suffering as a result of having declined the COVID jabs. So yeah, it was really nice that I was able to go there and experience that. I know a lot of people wanted to be there. They were further away in the country. They couldn't go. And even to those people, I mean, it was kind of like a beacon of hope to a lot of people that they weren't alone, that there's other people going through the same things. Because they really did try to isolate us into submission. But yeah, I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this channel, just so that when these type of events happen again, when you have like Hong Kong protests, when you have trucker convoy, when you have these farmer protests, we need to show these people that there's tools that we have at our disposal to fight back against the government. The government can't stop. Um, it's all about privacy coins. I think there was one Monero wallet that was frozen from the Freedom Convoy. I'm fairly certain that was at a centralized exchange. It was really hard for me to try to find details about that. I'll do a little search and I'll try to put it on screen. Yeah, if all those donations were in privacy coins, it wouldn't have been able to stop the Freedom Convoy so easily. It would have been a much more complicated task for them to shut it down if they weren't able to go after the financing. Anyone in Pirate Chain or Conceal Network, they're both part of the BPSAA. They kind of play nice. They're both projects that are working with other privacy projects with the awareness that we're going to have these private networks and more than one of them, so that there's redundancies. If one of them gets hacked, or the cryptography gets defeated in a way that the encryption gets defeated, we have to have backup networks. And I would say quite a few of them, whereas with payment coins, real payment coins, we don't really need a lot, but for privacy, we need a lot of redundancy there. I mean, just looking at what's happening with the COPA trial right now, if you look at the COPA trial, the statements that are coming out of the COPA trial, a lot of the statements that Calvin Ayre and the N-Chain crowd are making about this is that the end result of the trial will be an end of anonymous crypto, and that the governments have to use regulation to force everything onto transparent ledgers and then really go after the privacy coins. Now, I personally do not trust any government anywhere, so for me that's a real problem. But I think we need people to be aware of how important these privacy networks are, so that when the government goes after them, we stand up for them. I said it in one of my videos briefly before, people have to be willing to go to jail to protect these private networks. You have to be willing to run your miners clandestinely to keep these networks up, so that we don't end up in a situation where everything we do is transparent and we turn the world into a digital panopticon. And I mentioned in my first video, I think prior to the trial, how one of my initial concerns about this case is that if everything N-Chain is trying to achieve were to come to fruition, BSV would sort of act as a panopticon, where all of the world's data and financial activity would be hosted on that network, and then there'd be surveillance tools, AI surveillance tools, that would monitor everyone's activities on that network. And this is all going to be enforced by the government, and governments are going to be able to use the surveillance tools that they have on that network to punish you for the things that you're doing. So it'll really amount to the end of privacy for most people. And I think one of the first things that they'll do is move to shut down fiat on-ramps onto private networks. So they'll try to eliminate the avenues that you have to exchange whatever currencies that we'll be using for those privacy coins. And there's a great interview that happened recently with Crypto Rick and Gavin Mail. I agree with a lot of what Crypto Rick had to say. There's a few points where mild disagreements with him, but for the most part, I think he's right on the money about a lot of what he's saying. So if you haven't seen that, go over check out. I think they're both hosting it on their channels. The interview, it's a great interview. Yeah, I think we all have to become aware of the errors that we made and just learn from these mistakes. Learn from what the Hong Kong protests did wrong. Learn from what they did right, because they did a lot of things right in Hong Kong that hasn't been replicated in protests that we've seen since, and it's kind of sad that we haven't collectively learned these lessons. Um, a lot of what I want to do on that channel is help people to collectively learn these lessons, anticipate what the government is going to do next, so that we can kind of not necessarily get a step ahead of them, because I think that's usually almost impossible to do, but sidestep them, counter them at least a little bit, keep the momentum going in our direction as long as we can when these events occur. And yeah, I mean, really, I think if people knew the tools that we had available to us, and we chose to actually use them in an intelligent way, because I mean, all of these new technologies are just tools that we can use for good or bad. And we're currently allowing bad people to shape how they'll be used, but yeah, I mean, we can flip the script on that whenever we want. So, really, I think we need to all collectively bring that to the attention of our collective conscious. Like, everyone needs to kind of understand we have these tools now where we can completely reclaim all this power that we've given up to centralized entities over the course of hundreds of years, really. And they know it and they're scared, really. Like, they had to clamp down on the Freedom Convoy because it was a threat. That's why they reacted that way. And if we were a threat that had more tools at our disposal, we could have been so much more effective at achieving what we wanted to than we were. Um, I really wish I had the time to go to Ottawa and devote more time to getting to know the people who are in charge there so that I can kind of make the case out to them as clearly as I'd like to. But I didn't really get that chance, so yeah, hopefully in hindsight we can correct that by spreading the word, getting more people aware, getting more people into crypto, and not the bullshit side of it, not the Ponzi side of it, but the things that have real utility, real value, things that are actually going to be used as money because they're equipped to do it from a protocol level, from a transaction level, not just some shitcoins that have marketing behind them and hype behind them. Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna go enjoy the beach for a while before the Copa trial starts. It's about to start.